So in this segment, we're going to be talking about British exporters report stagnating trade as post-Brexit delays are blamed, and a lot of it's down to the situation in Dover. Obviously, you've got customs fees, declarations, vet checks, all of the kind of paperwork, the GVMS system, all the paperwork and bureaucracy which goes along exporting to the EU. It's absolute madness, and we're going to keep seeing situations at Dover for more and more kind of pedestrians, as opposed to heavy goods vehicles. Heavy goods vehicles have a consistent queue most of the year round, purely because of the fact that their stuff has to get checked, and there's a massive volume of them going towards France. British exporters have seen their overseas trade stagnate over the past year despite strong growth in domestic demand for their products and booming export markets, according to a survey. So the export markets are doing well in terms of the markets we're selling the stuff to, and domestic demand has gone up. The problem is customs, all of the fees that go along with importing goods, the EORI numbers, VAT, everything has to be paid up front. All of those kind of costs all kind of amount to a situation where suppliers are looking elsewhere. Businesses in the EU are looking elsewhere for their goods. The British Chamber of Commerce has said a survey of 2,600 exporters found a quarter had suffered a fall in exports, and another 46% reported no change. It could be no change because this is the second quarter, so they had to deal with this since the first quarter of the year, really, when full rules of origin checks came in, and they asked, last year they still had to do a lot of the paperwork. So it could be a reason why 46% have reported a no change, because of the fact this is the second quarter now. Like, a lot of the businesses are going to be used to it, but the fact that a quarter of them have found a fall in exports, as exports are meant to rise as we enter into the busy periods of the year, is pretty scary, I'll be honest. Only 29% reported an increase in sales in the second quarter, down from 40% that reported an increase in the first quarter. So evidently they're doing well. 29% the second quarter. I mean, as trade is meant to ramp up, it's hard to really analyse statistics because percentage increases and decreases can be skewed. But the simple fact is, when you're looking at these numbers, it's not great. And we'll be talking about some of the companies that are doing well out of the situation right now in the Russian invasion of Ukraine soon. We'll talk about that in the second bit of the video. Firms said Brexit was one of the main barriers to exports after the introduction of customs checks and delays at the border. And customs checks and delays at the border are a result of Brexit. Let's not forget that. We wouldn't have to do customs checks, declarations, import declarations, export declarations, all of this stuff, right, would not have had to happen without Brexit. William Bain, the head of the BCC's head of trade policy, said that since last summer, the UK exports have stalled to the EU, and that's despite a global boom. Most other countries are going back towards their pre-pandemic levels of trade. We are not. The rest of the world, while many other leading exporting countries have enjoyed a boom, the combination of supply chain disruption, which is impacting the world, the cost of transporting containers and things has gone up, but supply chain disruption is also factored in with things like export red tape. And also import red tape is affecting manufacturers as well, because we don't have a lot of raw materials in the UK. That means we have to import them. If we import them from the EU, they're hit with customs checks and declarations as well. The impact of Brexit red tape and compliance costs has had a chilling effect on exports, especially for smaller firms already scarred by the pandemic, because they can't afford customs agents. They're very expensive. A report by the Centre of Economic Policy Research said the UK in a Changing Europe think tank last month found the desire to pursue a hard Brexit had resulted in a significant increase in trade barriers and trade costs in goods and services, as well as restrictions on migration flow. So what you have is problems exporting goods, problems exporting services, but also, the fact that we can't get people in. No freedom of movement. We can't get people in to do jobs to really boost productivity, because developed economies need a lot of migration to help push the economy and push productivity, because not only do you get more people in to do jobs, you also get more expertise in, and that's a key problem that we're facing. The BCC said manufacturing trading overseas were under particular pressure, with only 39% expecting their profitability to increase in the next 12 months. And if they don't expect their profitability to increase, they're not going to invest more money in the country. They're going to look elsewhere, or they're just going to bank the money, because they don't see it as their business can expand. Their profits aren't going to go up. Why would they continue to invest? This is compared to 48% of the service sector exporters. And again, it's not good. It's not good for the service industry. Let me put it that way. Especially as things begin to change with clearinghouses. Manufacturing exporters are also the most likely, 78%, to expect to raise prices in the next year, a record high, the report said, and their prices will go up. I don't know if that's for Evidently it's most likely going to be for exports to the EU, and that's probably just down to the rising costs of the input costs. So the cost to make the goods, especially if you're importing raw materials, but also the fact that exporting, especially with rising fuel costs in the UK, it's costing more and more for them to export, and the more they have to compete with goods that are cheaper, the more problems they're going to face. Almost 9 out of 10, 89% of firms in the factory sector cited the rising bills for imports of raw materials, something we mentioned before, as the biggest cost pressure, because we don't have a lot of raw materials in the UK. We have to import them. If they come from the EU, they get hit with customs declarations. That automatically raises the cost of us importing those goods, which adds more input costs to the final product. And when it comes to exporting those products, if we export them, they come with even more checks, even more problems. 3/4 of firms said utility bills and rising wages were also hitting profits. Utility bills does have Brexit has a slight part in that, with obviously rising energy costs and the fact that if we enter a trade war with the EU, the energy we import from the EU could be put at risk. The EU could be given favourability when it comes to fuel exports from EU nations, but also from certain EFTA countries as well, Norway being one. The EU could say, look, we're a bigger market, we're willing to pay more, economies of scale. Would rather you sell to us than the UK. Like that, they can kind of not strong arm Norway. No one wants to try and strong arm Norway, but they can try and pull some levers here. If in the words of Barcelona presidents, pull levers. Rising wages is partly down to the fact that freedom of movement. There's less labour in the UK. The workforce, the employers have to compete a lot more for employees now. Bain said that while a recent official figures have shown obviously there's training costs as well. If you don't have the people with the expertise, you've got to train people. That's expensive. Bain said that while recent official figures have shown an increase in exports to the EU, this was mostly driven by trade with Ukraine to replace weapons and other goods related to the invasion by Russia. So our trade is being propped up by weapons exports, and the war in Ukraine won't last forever. It might last a couple of years at most, but our exports are being propped up because those weapons are going via the EU. That's a key problem, because they're shown as exports to the EU when they're not. He said the BCC's export data showed there are serious underlying issues which are hitting smaller manufacturing exporters the hardest. And I'll tell you what, with this weapons thing, and from what I've seen in this article from City AM, with probably one of the most misleading headlines I've seen in a while, which is boost for global Britain as UK exports to defy EU Brexit challenges and hit the highest levels ever. I mean, it's down to liquid gas, or liquid nitrogen gas, or LNG. Due to the lack of LNG import terminals in Europe, the UK is a key global importer of the fuel, which it then exports to Europe via pipeline, particularly given small storage capabilities in the UK. So not only are we suffering because of our limited storage capabilities, which means that we can't store the gas, which would help consumers in the UK, we basically have to export that back out to the EU, which further props up our numbers. So our numbers are being propped up by basically the Russian invasion of Ukraine in a sense. They're being propped up by our gas exports, which have increased because Russia have cut off Europe from gas, effectively. And of course, weapons. Yeah, BAE Systems and all these other companies that make weapons. Yeah, you're doing great, aren't you? So, end of the day, once this war ends, the UK's numbers are going to look really, really bad, and then people are going to wonder, I wonder what's causing our exports to go down. It can't be Brexit, because that happened years ago. The simple fact is our numbers are being propped up. These are artificial figures here, purely because of the fact that we're being propped up by a Russian invasion. Once that ends, it's done. It's done. I can't see the trade numbers doing well, especially as countries start moving their supply chains out of the UK. We spoke about that previously this year. It was actually a decent article from City AM which talked about how Portugal, Sweden, I think Finland were among the countries that are looking to take business to make up the slack for UK exports. So as UK exports become more expensive and prohibitive, these are the countries that are looking to replace us effectively. We've already covered stories about different kinds of manufacturers, OEMs, leaving the UK for the EU, typically Slovakia for car manufacturing, and other EU countries, wherever they can, wherever it's feasible for them to go, and whoever potentially offers them subsidies to set up shop in those countries. But the fact is, they are leaving the UK. Where they go in the EU, that's up to them. That's up to them, whoever gives them the best offer or whatever. But the simple fact is, they're leaving here, and that's a massive problem, especially as supply chains continue to move out of the UK, and countries become less reliant on us. countries will become less reliant on us to be a middleman for gas, and they'll become less reliant on us for weapons as well. And that means, what will the UK export at that point once there's no reliance on those things? Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.